Today, we're breaking it all down in simple terms. What index funds actually are, how they work, and the key differences between these three famous stock market indexes. By the end of this video, you'll understand the essentials that most people never learn. Let's jump in. Before we talk about index funds, we need to understand what an index actually is. A stock market index is simply a list or group of companies put together to represent a portion of the market. Think of it like a sampler platter of stocks. Instead of tracking every stock in existence, an index picks a representative group so we can see how the market is doing overall. For example, some track large companies, others track tech companies, others track small businesses, and some track companies specific to countries or industries alike. An index is not something you buy directly, it is just something used to track. Now that we know what an index is, an index fund is simply an investment fund like a mutual fund or an ETF that buys the same companies that are in a particular index that you're trying to track. For example, if an index holds 500 companies, the index fund holds the same 500 companies. If the index changes a company, the funds also update that changed company. This is called passive investing because there isn't necessarily a manager trying to pick winners. The fund, it just follows the exact index. So why do people like me love index funds? Well, because they're low fees, they're diverse naturally, they have strong long-term performance, and they're simple and beginner friendly for people like you and me. The legendary investor himself, Warren Buffett, said people would be better off just taking all their money and putting it into a reliable index fund, rather than relying on their own expertise and picking individual stocks and profiting from them. As I've mentioned before on this channel, there are three major index funds. Starting off first, we have the Dow Jones, or simply the Dow. This is one of the most famous and oldest index funds we have. It only tracks 30 large companies we have here in the United States, often called blue chip companies. For example, think of giants like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Apple, and Boeing. But unfortunately, this index only has 30 companies, as we mentioned, so it doesn't represent the entire market effectively. So many investors, honestly like me, see the Dow Jones as an old-fashioned index and look for other indexes to invest in. Our number 2 index, we have the Nasdaq Composite. People often think of the Nasdaq as the tech index, which is exactly what it is. The Nasdaq Composite tracks over 3,000 companies, which is way more than what we've mentioned before. Most of them are in technology, of course, biotech, and growth industries. Once again, this includes companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Google. Because it's so tech heavy, and the future is composed of tech, you see that it's faster growing, however, it's more volatile, and it is also more sensitive to interest rates. So if you like tech, this may be it for you. However, a general rule of thumb is if the tech industry booms, then the Nasdaq is also booming. When the tech industry struggles, the Nasdaq also struggles as well. And finally, we have my personal favorite, and that is the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is the index where most professionals would argue that this tracks the market the best. That is because it has the most amount of companies in the most amount of sectors and industries, as we've talked about before. Some industries include tech, healthcare, finance, energy, and even consumer foods we eat on a daily basis. However, the S&P 500 is market cap weighted, so that just means bigger companies have more shares in the S&P 500 index. To keep it simple, if a company like Apple or Microsoft stock moves a lot, the S&P is probably moving a lot as well. Because it's so diversified across these 500 companies, this makes it more balanced than the Dow and less volatile than the Nasdaq. So in summary of all these three indexes, we have the Dow Jones, which has 30 companies and it's older and more traditional. Then we have the Nasdaq Composite, which has about 5,000 plus companies, all tech heavy and way more volatile. And then the old reliable, the S&P 500, which is much more diversified across companies and industries and is the standard professionals use today. Indexes are one of the most simple ways a beginner can get started investing and have a safe net of income while also investing for the long term. If you found this helpful, drop a like, subscribe to my channel. I'll be talking more about finance, investing, and all things related. Drop a comment below the video to let me know or others know which index you plan on investing in depending on these facts I've just given you. This is Shinker Financial, and I hope you have a great day.